Hello, everybody. I am Tanya Lee, and I am here to give you your weekly Emerge Lunar Report, starting with October 28th, 2021, where we are at the third quarter phase of our current lunation cycle, and it's occurring in the sign of Leo. So this week, from today, Thursday, October 28th, until next Thursday, November 4th, where we have our new moon in Scorpio, we will be focusing on closure, what's otherwise known as the balsamic moon or the dark moon. And the dark moon occurs those few days before the new moon when you can't see any light reflected from the moon. So I'd like to spend some time today talking about the dark moon. Yeah, so our great benefics are in a honeymoon phase that's kicking off this fourth quarter moon from the Libra cycle that we started. What does this mean? Well, it's a great time to focus on abundance in the form of not growing abundance or asking for abundance, but being in gratitude for the abundance that you have in your life. So closing out this cycle, the Libra cycle that we started back in October 6th. We opened up to receive the new seeds for a new cycle, and we built and built and built and built and built until we reached the full moon in Aries that happened on Wednesday, October 20th. And that full moon fruition phase was followed by a waning gibbous that we just finished, which was about harvesting the lessons and the wisdom. And now going into the final quarter, it's about making space for a new cycle. Any closure, which usually means going into the dark corners of things. So that brings us to the dark moon. I have been reading this book, Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George, who is epic, iconic woman in astrology who has been holding down the fort for ancient astrology for as long as I've been studying it and far beyond that. And before ancient astrology and Hellenistic astrology was cool, she was doing it. So our dark moon is going to be happening. So we have Halloween coming up this weekend. And we have Samhain coming up next weekend, the astrological Samhain. So we basically get two Halloweens, one this Sunday on the 31st of October and one next Sunday on the 7th of November. The second one is an astrological Samhain, and we'll talk more about that next week. This one coming up the weekend is Halloween, when we're all focused on, the Day of the Dead, which happens actually between Halloween and the Samhain this year. So you could have 3 Halloweens. So every dark moon we go into the veil being thinned between the internal and the external. So a lot of Demetra talks about that in her book here, and I'm not even halfway through, but I'd like to share some of what she has to say here about the dark moon, just to give us some inspiration for the upcoming week ahead. All right. This is off of page 24. The waning part of the lunar cycle, which starts right after the full moon and runs until the new moon, the waning part of the lunar cycle corresponds to destruction. What was wanting to happen has happened. The purpose has been accomplished. The function of the form has been fulfilled. So we're building a form in the waxing part of the phase. It's been fulfilled at the full moon. At this point, the form may be antiquated, run down, useless, depleted of vital energy. The children have grown up and moved away. The large house is in need of more financial and physical maintenance than is feasible for the now aging parents. It is time to let go of a form that has fulfilled its function and no longer serves the purpose for which it was intended. It may be necessary to sell the old rambling house and move to a simpler and more appropriate life environment that better meets the changing needs of the parents. So it's about the waxing phase, building a form or a structure that is to contain the intent or the seeds planted or the need that was growing. Once that is fulfilled, you no longer keep that form around. It's time to let it go so that the energy may be released and that you can start a new cycle that requires a new form to be built. It is at this point that we enter into the dark moon phase, the transition between the destruction of the old and the creation of the new. This process is called transformation. A process that occurs whenever any life form has fulfilled its purpose and used up its store of vital energy. It then becomes necessary for that form to be broken down in order to liberate the contained energy so it can be revitalized, recharged, and made available again to be infused into a new life form. And that, my friends, is a summation of the process of life that is found in almost every culture, spirituality, religion. It's just the way things work. Create, sustain, destroy. So something creates, an energy creates, something sustains it, and then something expands it. Nothing is meant to stay exactly as it is. That's why change is inevitable. We can't get away from change. Change is a part of life. So interesting how attachments, we want to hang on to things just as they are. I don't know, out of what? Fear that it's never going to be better than that. Yeah, we could go down the rabbit hole on that one. Next month, we go into Sagittarius season. We'll philosophize about all the things. Okay, so then Demetra goes on to talk a bit more about the dark phase of the cyclical process. The dark phase of the cyclical process is where healing and renewal occur. During the dark time, any form that has fulfilled its function and exhausted its supply of vital force lets go of the structure that has contained its energy. Like we let go of our physical bodies when our spirit is ready to leave, when we are done with this life. So, we can talk about this in form of like the life cycle of a plant, the life cycle of a human, the life cycle of an animal, the life cycle of a creation. But when we're talking about emerging from lunar phases, this is the last quarter phase, where it says here these forms can range from our personal or societal lifespan to those of our relationships, beliefs, and identities. So the sign that the last quarter moon is occurring in, it's like hitting that tuning fork, vibrating through the week of that dark moon phase, is giving us a hint as to what part of our form we need to destroy or let go or allow to die. So when it's occurring in Leo, like it is now, we have a hint that it may have something to do with our ego, personal ego, maybe an ego death. And a lot of spiritual traditions, they talk about having multiple ego deaths is an important part of the spiritual path and to start progressing. So you may even want to Google the ego death and go down that tunnel. So that could be a theme with Leo. Also, self-love, any beliefs that are in the way of you actually truly loving and appreciating who you are and acting out of a place of self-love. So those are just some examples. Where are we? Okay. So in the dark phase, the essence of that form, whatever it is, we're working with Leo right now, is cleansed, distilled, re-energized, and dedicated with a vision that becomes the new form birthed at the moment of renewal. The transformative process destroys old patterns of thoughts and behavior that hold us back. Old concepts and their corresponding life structures, which no longer serve a creative purpose or prevent growth, need to be eliminated. I love how she words that, because we've often heard the saying, let go of what no longer serves you. And it's like, well, what does that actually mean? And here, I'm going to underline this because I really like that, how she put it there. Old concepts and their corresponding life structures, which no longer serve a creative purpose or prevent growth, need to be eliminated. Love how specific that is. Much pain and agony may arise in the process of releasing our vital energy from useless forms or habitual non-productive psychological patterns. But this is also the very energy that will nourish us and enable us to push onward toward new growth. It's going to be painful. It's just the process of releasing that energy, because you're letting a part of you die. And that's part of how I love how the moon cycles mimic a woman's menstrual cycle. Because when you break down a woman's menstrual cycle and what's actually happening physically and our biological chemistry that's causing different things to happen, is when an egg is released at ovulation, it is representing a form that has been grown. It's a form to contain a spirit. And if it is not fertilized, then that form needs to be destroyed. So that's when we release, I believe it's progesterone that starts that. No, there's another hormone. I'm not going to start with the hormones because I can't remember. But anyways, what happens is the egg absorbs back into the uterine lining and a death occurs. Or death occurs and then it absorbs back into the uterine lining. And then when we start menstruating, we release that lining. We release the old form and the old structure from the body. So I was having a talk with a girlfriend the other day about our menstrual cycles and our moon cycles, because then maybe this is where women got the skill of multitasking, because we have our own lunation cycle happening within us, and then there's a lunation cycle happening outside of us. Right? I'm a few days away, so I'm actually aligned right now, and I find that when I'm going through what we previously known as PMS, so that week prior to menstruation is the dark moon phase. So when you're going through that in your menstrual cycle and it's happening in a lunation cycle, it can feel like the draw is a lot stronger and we have a lot more power to release and go in. Whereas if we're ovulating during the dark moon, we can feel like we're kind of at odds with ourselves and something's not in alignment. So it's interesting to, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, and sometimes you can be like, wow, it's a full moon, I should be feeling X, Y, Z, but you're in the dark moon in your menstrual cycle. So those are some things to take into consideration if you are a menstruating woman. Or if you're in a relationship with a menstruating woman, it could be very helpful for the relationship. Okay, great book. Highly recommended. Awesome. I think I'm going to do a lot of reading. So summarizing, we're spending a week in the dark moon, initiated by the sign of Leo. You may also want to look in your natal birth chart and see where the sign Leo lands, and that may give you some hints to the area of life that this release, expansion, disruption, release of form is occurring. All right, sending you love for the week ahead. If you have any questions, please let me know, or if you have some experiences to share about your journey through this lunar phase, I would love to hear about it. Until then, love you all. Mwah.